So let's chat a little bit about this business growth funnel in the middle. It does not matter what industry you're in, what your business is, what you sell, how long your sales cycle is, who your customers are, how many different things you sell, whether you sell a leather coat in a 60-second transaction or you sell a ERP solution that takes 18 months to sell and 3 years to implement. Your customers go through the same journey. The spine of your business is what produces revenue and profitability so that you can pay for everything else. Now, on both sides of the spine, we can 100% agree that yes, our entire business is around getting customers into the system, serving them, giving them, what we promised, and then keeping them and working them through our organization, high lifetime value customers. The problem is that we have different roles and responsibilities along that journey. So the executives and owners have this financial results data, which is verifying whether or not the things we've done have worked. It's lagging indicators, but it's required for managing cash flow and profitability and really aligning all the operations of an organization. Depending on your business model, it could be 24 hours or 48 hours behind data that happens on the other side of the spine. In some cases with some of our clients that have, net 90 or net 180 payment terms, finance can be 3 to 6 months behind the data that's available on the right side of the spine. We're not very good at businesses about cross-pollinating the data. Like, we don't have a system in place to get it from one side to the other. And you're going to see that's a foundation of today's conversation. But all the people on the right side, your managers, your operators, even your tacticians, the people that are out every single day have access to real-time activity-based data, real-time information. They're using it to manage people and vendors, process and tools, align expectations. They have data that is helping them decide how to make it work. Lots of times they don't know if it actually worked or not because they never got that feedback from the other side. So what happens when there's no single source of truth that we can understand the data that each other has access to? Well, in many cases, many organizations that we work with firmly believe that, when we need to grow our organizations or fix a downturn or do a turnaround, we need to grow revenue. So the belief is marketing and sales are accountable for filling the funnel. And then we've got it from here. Marketing and sales, you go sell. Once the contract's signed, it comes in. We know the rest of our business. We've got it from here. Liz, what do you think about that in building a dashboard? And I've actually got a survey on this about whether or not it's true or false. So while Liz tells me about when she's building dashboards, how this comes into play, just text A or B to that same text chain that we already started. And, oh, I love that I got a false first. Someone is convicted in that fast false.
Yeah, when we're building dashboards, a lot of times when we're working with companies, they talk about wanting to track the marketing piece, and they talk about, we also want to track sales. We want to see what the pipeline looks like, how everything's coming together. And they sort of stop there. So a lot of times when we're talking with them about the things that they want to measure and what their KPIs are, we'll start expanding that conversation out, and we'll say, well, what's your customer lifetime value? Do they repurchase? Is that something that also needs to be tracked in your process? Are they giving you referrals? How many of those are coming in? We see when we're tracking sales that new leads have 16% come from referrals. Do we maybe want to track that whole referral process as well? And actually expanding that down to look and see where things fall in different parts of the process.
Well, this group, I don't know if you can see the results. Can you see the results?
Oh, unfortunately not. I want to know.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so 68% of this group said that it is false that marketing and sales sell and we can take it from here. So we have some wise and experienced business leaders in this group. So let's go forward into our case study and figure out a little bit more for the 38% that said, yes, if marketing and sales fill the funnel, we are good. We'll take it from here. You know, we have in this particular case study a group of leaders that have been meeting on a regular basis, going over their KPIs, and marketing and sales come up after 9 months of tracking this progress and say, man, we are killing it. You gave us a high revenue target. Marketing manager gets up and says, this is our best year ever. We're up 12 million in impressions and inbound leads are up 550%. We killed it. We hit our revenue target. We are good. Sales manager comes in. By the way, they're not as exciting as I am, so I'm dramatizing here for effect. So sales manager comes in, they're very excited. Their pipeline has been up all year, up 67%. Average contract values are up 14%. Marketing says, yeah, look at that pipeline, inbound leads, contract values up. Sales is like, man, we're selling better. We're not discounting. That's what we need to do to hit the revenue target. And by the way, account management says attrition's down 6%. Isn't that amazing? We're doing great. Now, most of the time when I'm in a live audience, I get to ask how many people would be happy if this was the marketing and sales report. And a lot of people are like, yeah, it looks pretty good. You know, got some really good numbers there. Oh, shnikes. This is definitely an oh, shnikes moment because finance gets up and says, no, this is our worst year ever. Marketing and sales, you have no idea what you're doing. I don't know where you got your data, but it is wrong. Here are the financials. We are screwed as a business, right? So Liz, building dashboards, how many times after you build the dashboard does someone say, oh no?
You know, one of the things about building out dashboards and bringing all the data together, especially when you're integrating this all of these impressions numbers and inbound lead numbers and things like that with the final finance reports, is that you're finally seeing how those two things impact one another, and you can start seeing the trends of all the different segments. So we actually get that response a lot of people seeing some sort of confirmation that this thing that they thought was true all along might not be exactly what they thought it was.
Yeah, before automating a dashboard, we just went through one of those cases where putting the data together resulted in discovery that the cost per demo on a SaaS solution was close to $8,000, but the lifetime value was, or the average contract value was 9. So lifetime value was higher, of course, but the average contract value really didn't even cover the cost of demo, never mind onboarding and all the other pieces. So let's figure out some better ways to measure this. Like, let's just look at marketing and see what they did wrong so we can learn from what they did. They decided in this year to increase the budget by $75,000 to try to go after inbound. Before, they did not have an inbound strategy. They'd never spent money there before, so they were trying it out, and marketing was pretty pleased with this 12 million and 550% inbound. However, inbound leads were really poor quality, and the cost of qualified lead went up more than 2,000%. So what showed up in the finance numbers was that each lead cost over $7,000 in this case, instead of the 325 it had in prior years. Kind of a big ouch, huh? So you have this worksheet to be able to take some notes. So in this particular case, the advisement to the company would be, before you start spending that inbound digital, figure out how you're going to measure whether or not it's working. So maybe you don't get 9 months in and realize that, wow, we really should have adjusted this sooner or stopped spending. percent of qualified leads and cost per qualified lead were the two KPIs that they should have been measuring versus inbound leads and impressions. And you have another worksheet. So as we go through today, you're going to see the case studies show up this way, so that you can think about your own business and be like, shoot, we should really be measuring that thing. That one over there, how would we measure it? Something today might tell you how you might measure it. But what's really important when you look at this worksheet that overlaid, which is your 5 priority metrics worksheet, is that marketing actually has no way of producing the KPI that says whether or not the inbound strategy is working. The reason why is because they need access to QuickBooks to get the cost information. They set a budget, but we don't know how much has actually been spent, and we don't have labor and T&E access. So most of the cost conversion information that comes out of marketing is not accurate because they do not have labor as part of the calculation. And this is not the first case today when you are going to hear that they did not give marketing access to QuickBooks. We could have just solved that whole thing, Liz. I mean, come on. So really great reasons to not give marketing access to QuickBooks. We are not advocating for that, by the way. And then the other piece is that most marketing departments and definitely most agencies don't have access to the full CRM pipeline. And so they don't actually know what happens. They create leads. They don't actually know what happens. They just go into a process, and we don't know whether or not a salesperson called them, whether they were qualified, whether they became a customer. So we have no way of getting that data back up front to adjust what we're doing in order to get more sales or more leads into the sales process. So Liz, tell us about these dragons that were slayed in marketing, because that is one of the highest cost areas where the data does not align from marketing data to financial data.
Yeah, so here we're looking at things like the quantity KPIs that they're presenting, your impressions being one of them, are what we like to call vanity metrics. And we're going to go into exactly what those are here in just a second. But then we have our quality KPIs, which in this case are leading indicators. They're going to do a little bit better of a job of telling us how things are actually progressing, if they're being successful. And finally, we get down into those profitability KPIs, which is that financial alignment to say, here is what was actually spent. Here was the ROI on this activity. Here's how it actually impacted the bottom line. So it's starting from that top piece with those initial measurements and really working down to get out of those vanity metrics and be able to start aligning everything. So
you got to tell us about this one, because I see these vanity metrics all over the place. They make my heart hurt.
Yeah, so vanity metrics are named vanity metrics for a couple of reasons. They make you look good. They make you look so good, but they don't actually tell you the full story of what's going on. And the biggest point of all here is that they're easily manipulated or potentially misleading. And what I mean by that is like sessions on a website is kind of considered somewhat of a vanity metric, because that can be skewed very easily by things like an IP address not being counted out of all the tracking. Maybe you brought on someone new that's training and their IP address hasn't been excluded yet. So you're seeing all their hits on the website, and suddenly you have this spike one month and it gets attributed back to whatever else marketing was doing to drive traffic to the website. So they can be easily manipulated in that way to the point where they're not exactly giving you the true story of what's happening. There are a couple ways that you can get past that.